Good evening. I welcome all our viewers from Patna and Ranchi to this virtual session of the Right Circle, which is being organized by Prabha Khetan Foundation, Navra School of Performing Arts, SR's Women of Ranchi and Patna in association with Sri Cement. Our guest author today is Koral Das Gupta. She is an author, academic, columnist, painter, and professional speaker. She writes academic non-fictions and relationship dramas, exploring the inherent nature of complex minds that leads to a relatable conflict and predictable climax. Her columns spread across websites, magazines, explore art, education, parenting, mythology, travel, women issues, books, films, and others. As on October 2020, Coral has published 5 books with Wesleyan, Neogi, Rupa, and Pan Macmillan publishers. She has been recently signed by Pan Macmillan for a 5 book series on mythological fiction. She is the author of WWW Tell Me Your Story, a crowdsourced storytelling platform where stories drive the narrative of a generation. The Holmes Report, a New York based PR news agency, has recognized her work and included her in the list of Innovator 25 Asia Pacific 2019. Coral consults with educational and corporate bodies on content and communication projects and story writing, leadership, communication workshops. She has consulted with Star TV, John Wiley and Sons, NTPC, Airtel, Harlequin, Outlook Group, Quint, Central Board for Film Certification, and others. Coral is known for a great sense of humor, but when she is tired or sad or angry, she paints. Her paintings, often inspired by the Madhubani art form, are auctioned for social causes, the most prominent among it being the hashtag Art for Water campaign, where 2 of her paintings were auctioned and the proceeds were donated towards water conservation projects of Maharashtra. She is an advisory member of the Central Board of Film Certification and reports from Mumbai. I also welcome Malika Verma, who is SR's woman from Kolkata. She has been working in villages as well as raise funds for a home for children of leprosy sufferers and is a member of the governing body of Indian Institute of Cerebral Palsy. She has also been working for the revival and promotion of Bengal's heritage of handloom embroidery katha to enhance the livelihood of weavers and artisans. I once again welcome both Coral and Malika. And before we begin with the conversation, I request all our viewers to please send your postal address to the Kalam WhatsApp number so that we can send a copy of Coral's book. I now request Coral and Malika to start with the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to talk to Koral. I love having Bengal authors, and it indeed is a huge pleasure to have a woman author from Bengal. So, Koral, like Anvita ji said, a compulsive storyteller, a literary entrepreneur, a mother, a painter, India's proficient young author. Tell us a little bit about your name. Is it Coral? Is it Coral? I have another name which came up on the net. So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so you have decided to first pull my leg and then get into the conversation. So before I get there, let me just begin with saying that I am no longer a CBFC member. That tenure ended in 2018. That was a 2-year membership. But usually that attracts people the most. CBFC, I mean, there are lots of controversies there. So whenever you hear CBFC immediately, so I don't want people to again, come back towards asking me questions about things that I have not done.
Sure.
So Okay, yes. The name that my mother had given upon birth is Rammani, and Coral was actually a name which one of my teachers used to call me because she found me very colorful because I used to laugh a lot unnecessarily. So she got irritated, but she also loved it. Once I came to Mumbai, and before that I was in Lucknow, I have ample experience of people mispronouncing my name,
Yeah.
and in the most horrible ways possible. So South Indians called me Ramya, uh, Marathas called me Ramayani. Uh, I had to actually keep correcting them. I had to explain to them how to pronounce Rammani because the word is actually a Sanskrit word spelt in English after translating in Bengali. So it's complicated. We
Sure.
Bengalis are good at complicating names and giving complicated names to our offspring. So my
But they're beautiful. They're beautiful names, both of them. So thank you for that explanation.
yeah, so that is how I just before I became an author, my first book was with Shahrukh, in the sense that it was an academic book with Shahrukh as case study. I thought at some point of time, if Shahrukh takes my name, I don't want him to mispronounce it.
So you've lived in two cities, like Kolkata, you belong to always. For all of us, once you are touched by Kolkata, it never leaves you. And you have been in Mumbai for so many years. So tell us a little bit about how growing up in Kolkata, as I was corrected, Kola Bhavan, you tell us about that, in Shanti Niketan, also about Bombay. How was you're in Shantiniketan, which is the cultural heritage capital of Bengal, and then growing up in Mumbai. How did both the places affect your writing, your growing up? What are the influences, and how did it affect you as an author?
Actually, as a person, I get bored very easily. So, not that I got bored of any of these places that you named. I have also stayed in Pune. I have also stayed very briefly in Delhi. But every time something new comes up, I'm very open towards it. I just love to know, love to see, and I first dig out what are the positives of being there. So I always tell my husband that let's go to Delhi because the hills are just one night away. Bombay is one place where I never wanted to come. I thought that, okay, if I go to Bombay within 7 months, I'll run away from there. I'll just stay there for a short while and end it up. But that never happened. I got married here and stayed far longer than my plan originally was. But Calcutta was a very different place. It's still a very different place. The relationships, the kind of people you face, the culture, uh, the way the morning starts and the night ends, everything is very different. And after that, Shantiniketan was uh, far more. I went there to do my graduation. I was doing my graduation from Vishwabharati. So the days were very active, and the days actually started very early in the morning. That I was very much acquainted to because my mother, Bengali mothers, are very careful about how they are bringing up their children. And one of the things that they very prominently, and non-negotiably point out is you have to get up early in the morning. If you don't get up early in the morning, then you are not a Bengali. So I was thrown out of the bed and kind of pushed onto the ground. So I had to get up very early in the morning, and that is one habit that has stayed with me till date. Because till now I get up at 4:30 in the morning, and that is my writing time. That is the time when nobody needs me. There's no phone call, and that is the time when I can completely invest myself. The rest of the day is crazy. So Shantiniketan started very early and ended very early. By 8:30, things would kind of start winding up. And from there, I came to Bombay. I'll tell you that there's a very funny thing that my husband still laughs at. So I come from a fairly conservative family, or probably I was brought up a little conservatively in North Calcutta. So when I came to Bombay and I met this guy, then he was not my husband. So he one day offered that let's go out for a film, and I said fine. What time? And he said let's meet at 8. So I was like, meeting at 8 means 9 o'clock movie, which will end up 11:30, and then I come home. Boss, that is not happening. I mean, why should I stay out with you for so long? And I gave him quite a piece of my mind for even offering that. And he gulped and said, okay, let's meet at 5 then. And we met at 5 and watched a film at about 6. And till date, he makes fun of me for saying that, because that was a completely cultural shock in Bombay. Bombay stays up till late. The evening starts at 8. So uh,
So there's a lot of romance in your books. Is this a part of your Bombay?
oh, I think
Lot of
I
love. Yeah.
I think there are two things. One is my growth has happened, my upbringing has happened in a environment, in a lonely environment. I won't say exactly lonely is not the right word. Both my parents were working, so I had a lot of hours which were left to me, and so I indulged in books. And when you read books in Bengali, even if they're not typically romance books, there were a lot of romantic elements. You know, the nature, the way people spoke to each other, the language was very rich. The exchange was very rich. If you read Sharat Chandra, if you can read whichever, but there is an element of romance. So those elements were weaved into me from very beginning, because I was so voraciously reading that just was inculcated in my habits by my mother. Later, when I came, I mean, of course, every person goes through their own share of happy memories when it comes to romance, and
Heartbreak.
bad memories when it comes to romance. I too had my share of cruel memories, but thankfully, they didn't manage to kill the spirit that I had grown up with. They left their impact, which comes out at times in different complications. But there is a spirit which you identify with, and that has stayed, that has never left me. I healed faster, maybe.
Did you always know that you were going to be a writer or author? Were you always attracted to, you said you were attracted to books and you were reading. When did you actually, not your first book, when did you actually know that this is your calling, and you've taken up serious social issues also in your writing, that this could be your instrument to voice what you feel?
When I was in college, especially in Shantiniketan, I was surrounded by a lot of intellectuals, even among friends who were my batchmates, but intellectually much better equipped and better read in vernacular as well as global literature. And they were the ones who would always have that dream of being a writer at some point of time. And none of them have been. I never thought that I'll be a writer. I never claimed even that I'll be one. So I never saw myself as a author, as a writer, but it was a chance occurrence that I was teaching management. I am a management graduate. After my graduation in economics, I did my MBA. And at some point of time, I had started teaching. I was teaching consumer behavior. And I figured that consumer behavior is usually taught in the second year of your MBA program. So I figured that all through the first year, the kids had gone through all kinds of case studies, Nirma, Kellogg's, McDonald's, all kinds. By the second year, they're really bored of those. And and I was a very young professor, and in education, if you don't have enough gray hairs, you have to prove a little extra, you have to work a little extra hard to prove that you are eligible to, and you deserve to the position that you have got, and it's not come to you by fluke. So I was really working hard. And then I figured that I took it very personally when I found that kids were fumbling with their mobiles or sitting at the back and talking. So I thought that I must give them something extra. So what came to me was bringing Bollywood to classroom, because that was not something that was very prevalent in those days. I'm talking about 2011, 2012, when I started talking about why is Salman Khan the face of Big Boss? Why is Shah Rukh called the next Bachchan when Salman, Amir, Ritik were equally talented and successful? And then one day it so happened that we cracked a case study in class, which was about why Dawn was the first Amitabh Bachchan cult to be remade, when he had Kalapathar, when he had uh, Diwar, when he had so many other, classics. And the case study turned out very well, and the student attention as well as student attendance improved. And so I started repeating that pattern, bringing up brand personalities and Bollywood in the classroom. I got named as Shah Rukh Khan Wali Man. So at home, I was kind of documenting a lot of things that I discussed in class impromptu. It was not meant to, write a book. I was just documenting. I was just researching out things that were available from other resources uh, to make sure that whatever my discourse or my hypothesis was not was backed up well. And I was documenting it for next year. And at one point of time, I figured that, hey, I am actually writing a consumer behavior book, because all the chapters, all the content of consumer behavior book has an element of what I am working on. So I started doing that without thinking that this will ever get published. And once I finished, Wesleyan took it about within 3 months of me finishing the manuscript. Maybe I was lucky, or maybe Shah Rukh factor helped. Either of it, and that's how I became an author. When did I start taking myself seriously as an author? I don't think I took myself seriously as an author till I wrote my third book.
Sorry.
When I was writing my third book, that is Rasia, the Dance of Desire, which is the closest to my heart, because I had worked very hard. 3 years I had spent writing it, cutting it, writing it, reworking on it, and I didn't approach a publisher. I just kept on rewriting it till I was clear. I was sure that yes, this is how I want it to be. That was when I felt.
Clearly, you don't need somebody to ask you questions, because you're just cutting through my questions. You're going from one point to the other, and I'm thinking, okay, she's covered this and this and this. But
professors and lecturers are infamous for this.
Absolutely. No. It's fabulous. So let me come back to, while we are talking about, quickly touch on Power of a Common Man, because he certainly isn't common. And I'm only bringing it up because it is Shah Rukh Khan. And tell us about that experience. What did you, very short, because I've got so much that I have to ask you. So this is just because it is Shah Rukh, and everybody I'm sure wants to know that what was that like, and what was your, how you chose something as a brand personality. One would not really, I think, look at Shah Rukh as that. So how did that happen? I know that you said you were in college and you were teaching, but was he okay? How did that whole thing go? I mean,
actually, when I was writing it, I didn't have anything in my mind. I was just writing about him because I had followed his journey very closely. I have pleasant and hilarious memories of all kinds of things that happened between me and Shah Rukh from two different worlds without having met each other. I have even blacked the tickets of Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, but that's a story for another day.
yeah.
But yes, when I finished the document, I felt that there is a lot in it for management people and marketing professionals, and also for the fans of Bollywood. Initially, I was not thinking about the fans of Bollywood or Shah Rukh fans typically. which my editor pointed out and said that this is one content which everybody would love. So why don't you include in it everything? So this book has a little bit, it touches upon how, how Bollywood as an industry and audience got prepared for Shah Rukh. So there is a history. I have analyzed the history of Indian film industry, that who after who after who had actually come and played their part to finally, glide into Shah Rukh, and how things happened. Those are very interesting, and consumer behavior as a subject is very interesting. It has a lot in philosophy, and philosophy has a role to play in all of my books. So that was how it was. About after finishing it, I had sent the manuscript to Red Chillies for their approval, but the book was completed till Jab Tak Hai Jaan. And after that, Red Chillies took a lot of time to come back, and Chennai Express was released. So we quickly punched in a case study on Chennai Express and released the book without any permission. So Red Chillies still holds it against me.
Wow. So tell me your story, .in. I was
.biz.
Sorry, yeah. It's a crowdsourced storytelling platform. And in today's day and age, where it's so difficult for authors to get published and so difficult for people to voice their opinions, how successful have you been at this, and how many people have you reached who've not been able to really publish, and what are your plans with it for the future?
Tell me your story. This is something which is my dream project, and I have lots of plans for future, provided I get the right kind of support. For now, whatever we have been able to do from the little talent that I have is we have got a lot of people to write, and something that I'll tell you very frankly is there could be a time when there wouldn't be any more readers, because all readers will be consumed with the number of authors that are already publishing. But there will never be a dearth of author, because not every time, what I realize that not every time you have someone to hear your stories, but you still have a lot to say. When I started Tell Me Your Story, I figured that three specific demographies were coming most. One were the homemakers, two, the senior citizens, and three, the college students. And a little probe, I figured that these are the three categories who had a lot to say, but very few people to hear them out. They wanted to tell their stories. They didn't know where to say and how to say. So initially, I didn't look at what money I am making. I didn't look at how I'll make money. I just tried to help them find their voice. And slowly, as time passed, today we have a lot of activities going on there. We have our collection of ebooks. We have our virtual conversations. The virtual conversations are very interesting. Of course, we do it with authors. We do it with corporate heads, trying to understand their stories, the learnings. But an interesting thing that we also do is we try to talk to authors who are also professors of sociology, of cultural studies, and others, who have published their books on their research, right? Now, what happens is when you get a book published by Oxford University Press or Cambridge University Press, it gets stored in a library, and common people have no hunch of what you have researched. Till the time you know, as a common person, you have a hunch of what has been researched. What is the point? What is the point? So we reach out to the professors and help them in the conversations. We try to get their research spoken about in a layman's language, so that there is a discourse in place. Common people can agree or disagree, but at least they know that a research of this order has happened. There is a learning of this order. Other than that, we are also doing digital quarterly journal. It's quarterly, so once in 3 months. And we have fabulous content coming up there. right now we have two active projects. One is on the lost talent of Indian film industry. 2020 has been a terrible year for the film industry. We have lost many talents, and we are inviting the scholars to analyze the art that is left behind. The project is called Artists and Afterlives. So even after they are gone, they stay alive through their work, and how is what the scholars are supposed to contribute.
That sounds
The-
lovely.
yeah, it is a very interesting project. The other one is a project called Where the Kingfisher Sings, where we are seeking stories. This is short stories from anybody, but the story has to be set in the northeast of India. We want people to research on the northeast of India. We want people to know about the northeast of India, find out, connect, and set their stories on the northeast. So that is by the name, Where the Kingfisher Sings. So these are the two active projects that we are going ahead with right now.
So, Koral, you have been recognized in the list of Innovator 25 Asia Pacific.
I can't hear you.
Now, can you hear?
Yes.
Yeah. So you've been recognized in the list of Innovator 25 Asia Pacific 2019 report. And now with all your beautiful 5 books, let's come to your books. We've been, skirting around. What I saw, we discussed Power of a Common Man, which was the book on Shah Rukh, which was your first book. Your second book being Fall Winter Collection.
Yes.
Again, is a romantic journey of a sculptor in Shantiniketan.
Yes.
Your summer holidays are again 3 cities, Mumbai, Bangalore, Shimla.
Yes.
Rasya, the Dance of Desire. Gulzar says the narrative is superbly choreographed. I mean, these are beautiful words.
Okay.
And then the last, Love Letter. So there's a lot of love before I come to what we are waiting to talk to about Ahilya. There's a lot of love. There's a lot of cities. There's a lot of, and you're a very spiritual, God-fearing lady. So what is going on? Tell us about this author who is writing about so much love, different cities. What is, tell us a little bit about your books.
Malika, I am very happy that you have asked me this, because it makes me question myself. And when I do that and I look back, I figure that I have been a person who is extremely taken by beauty, all forms of beauty. I mean, if you ask me, I have a list of the most intellectual books that I can name. And I can also tell you the names of the bags and shoes that I would like to have in my kitty. So there are all kinds of beauty that I am fond of. You find love in my books, and they are very heartwarming kind of love, not the sad kind of love. You'll find very heartwarming kind of love, positive kind of love, because that is what I very, very strongly spiritually believe in. I do find that right now, in social media or otherwise, we are probably giving up or forgetting that element of love. And when it comes to cities and people, as I said before as well, that I love new places, I love to explore them, I love the elements, the typical elements, and especially the small towns. I know that there is a lot of audience here from the smaller towns. I have been to Jamshedpur, to Ranchi, and that was when I was on job. I have been to Shimla, Lucknow, Shillong. All these kind of small cities have a flavor of their own. So they attract me like anything. And of course, the urbans have their own, gloss. They have their own attractions. I love to explore those. I love to observe whatever is happening and how people are behaving. There are times when people have behaved a little, hurtfully, and they felt that I'm quiet because they have managed to hurt. But it is not always like that. I often keep quiet because I don't want to prolong the discussion. But there is something to observe in every situation, and I do that. So that is the reason why you find my books the way they are. I just believe that there are scopes of loving people from different aspects, from different ways, and they can have different spiritual connections, which we are increasingly forgetting today.
Okay, that's beautiful. Actually, that's really beautiful. And the more I'm getting to know you, and the more I'm reading about you, I do find that you yourself are so spiritual. And I'm coming to this Pan Macmillan, the books that you have been signed up for, the Sati series, right?
Yes.
And it's a perspective on the women's leadership. I'm quoting from the 5 legendary women of Indian mythology, the Panch Kanya, meaning the 5 virgins. So Ahalya, Kunti, Draupadi, Mandodari, and Tara. Very interesting, beautiful in today's day of feminism, a feminist, a feminism, morals which are so associated with a woman, that she must dress like, I read somewhere where you've said that now people are judging women by the length of their skirts, good hai ki bad hai, kya pehni hai, how does that sort of there's so much in this itself that I would love to question you about. And I also have requested you to read from Ahalya. So however you want to go about this, just let it flow. We're waiting to hear that.
This is a very interesting question, Malika, and I don't know whether, the way I have grasped the question, whether this is what you have asked. If not, stop me.
I won't stop you. You just say what you have to.
So when it comes to this women's skirt, yes, I, as a person, as a participant to this era and this sociological space, I do believe that women are their liberty to do what they want to, and not be governed or stopped or guided. They are mature enough to decide. And it needs the outlook of other people to change, instead of telling the woman that don't do this, if you do this, that will happen. Having said that, when it comes to the cover of a woman, if I may put it that way, it is a very interesting thing that I observe as an author. I observe instead of trying to make a change. The way I look at it, everything that is hidden or everything that is under wraps has its elements of mystery, has its elements of mysterious explanations. So literature and cinema has always exploited that part. And exploit, when I say, it's not meant to be in a wrong sense, but in a positive sense, that literature and cinema has used that definition of woman to explain them, and explain them beautifully. There are 2 things to it. One is the most beautiful part of this mystery, which manifests in the form of literature and cinema, and you find women as the most enigmatic, mysterious, beautiful beings. The other part is, the more you hide, the more people question, and the more people question, they get more aggressive, which manifests in the form of crimes against women. So now that women are coming out of that mysterious zone, I remember Radhika Apte once said that she finds nudity very liberal or liberating for herself. So we are in that situation when women are increasingly coming out of their folds, of their cover, and trying to make themselves available in a way that they endorse, of course, and exercising that beauty, right? So there will be 2 things that happen, which one is positive, that the aggressive men who are trying to disrobe the women to quench their thirst, probably they would be a little more, that is the hypothesis of the society, that they will be a little more calmer The second thing is that the mystery aspect in the definition of women will increasingly even out in literature and cinema. That may not be a very positive thing to happen from the space that we stand, because we have grown up on the kind of literature and cinema that uh, does the alternate. But having said that, every stage of evolution brings up something good and something bad. And so, as a social observer, I would wait to see how this goes and what role it takes and how it finds its space. What was your second question?
My question was on Ahilya. So the Panchkanya, the five virgins. I mean, you're going to read from Ahilya. Would you like to read that first and then go into talking about what made you choose this? Your other stories are about romance and different beautiful things, like you've said. Now, suddenly you've gone into this, you know, and you said to me that, spirituality and the religious books have always been a part of your life.
Yes, all my books does have an element of spirituality and mythology
Right,
in some form or the other.
right.
Fall Winter collections have, Rasia has,
Rasya has.
not so much, in fact, not at all in spirituality is there, but not mythology in summer holidays. But and now again the Sati series, and this one actually it came to me because I just could when I start writing anything, I basically see the character in some way or the other, and that prompts me to write the rest of it. It happened with all my books that I have seen one character and then I started writing, and the rest kind of wrote itself. Uh, Panchkanya, I wanted to write because I had this question in my brain that the epics.
In your
Today,
dream, sorry, you had. I didn't
no,
get that.
it's not a dream. It's just a thought.
I thought.
Just a
Okay.
thought that
Yeah, yeah,
comes, and then
yeah.
it's building up in your head, and then you try to explore more and more and more, and then it shapes up. So when it comes to Ahalya or the Panch Sati series, the Sati series, which is the Panchkanya series, I wanted to question that uh, today we are in our feminist discussions, we talk about why should a woman be judged by her body. But so many days ago, some Hindu philosophical texts had written, had called these five Panchkanya, and Kanya has been translated not by me, but very learned scholars as virgins. So how can you call a Kunti and a Draupadi virgin? So that was a question that came to me, and when I kind of allowed my thoughts to settle on that, I figured something very enchanting that, okay, these women are not being judged by their body at all. Hindu philosophical texts lend very little importance to the short term aspect or the temporary body, and it lends far bigger importance to the mind or the soul. So the texts are not judging these women on the basis of the decisions that they have taken where they have used their body. They are judging them on the decisions they have taken by using their mind. They have not compromised on their femininity. And at the same time, they made sure that their decisions are prompted by their social existential structure, the social existential responsibility wherever they are. Kunti as a queen, I mean, Kunti is coming up. Kunti as a queen will think of everything that she does as a queen, right? So she will take her estate in her thoughts. So these are very interesting findings that I have when I consider this. So I'll read a little bit that you told me to. I hope this portion is good for the audience. Okay, so this is a portion where Ahalya has come out, and after days of hiding herself, after Brahma has sent her with Gautam, she had kept in hiding from everybody because she didn't want to make herself visible. And then at some point of time, she comes out and starts taking the knowledge that Gautam is imparting to his disciples. I continued to sit through Gautam's morning preachings, albeit at a distance, afraid of the sage reading through my distractions. The mist enveloped me to near invisibility, and Gautam, as usual, didn't pay heed to my partial presence. His voice, firm and peaceful, reached me through waves in the morning air, enriching its audience. Such is the voice of a teacher. It seeps into the mind through unseen pores and inspires intelligence. It forces you to think, observe, learn, and discuss, to outgrow the dimensions of your shadow by walking towards a brighter light. For a student, though, that scholarly knowledge gets analyzed and interpreted through the most compelling ideological cause of their character. Gautam taught philosophy. I learned that the entwined strength of art, science, birth, life, and religion influences subscriptions to a chain of beliefs first and intimidates later with the slightest diversion. Gautam taught geography and astronomy. I learned how naming a place or space limits with its boundaries. Gautam taught yoga, Ayurveda, and human anatomy. I learned that the human body is sensitive. It is the recipient of pleasure and pain, largely dependent on what the mind chooses for the body. It is a silent volcano waiting to erupt as the explosives accumulate within its secret sac, conspiring against time. At times, Gautam's voice suddenly felt unfamiliar. From its usual coarse and rather shrill tone, it would turn deep, seemingly heavier, with more message than his spoken words would contain. It would happen at the blink of an eye, and before I could look up to inspect more, it was gone. Gautam would be back again in his usual disdain, imparting lessons of life, as he always did, as if nothing was ever inconsistent. But still, I felt there was another character to Gautam, surpassing the repulsive image he had attached within himself. A person hiding behind his austere means, as stillily as he can, not to cause any hindrance in the sage's usual reserve, a presence that even Gautam wasn't quite aware of. Is that good enough?
That was magical. And I really find an author reading their own work, nobody else can read with that feeling or that emotion because you've written it. So thank you so much. I know you were hesitant, but I loved it. I loved it. And I really appreciate your doing this for us.
Thank you so much.
We don't have much time, but I still am not through with my questions. I'm going to quickly go through them. Um, I did want to talk a little bit about gender disparity and morality, but I think we'll keep that for maybe some questions are coming in, and we will bring in some of that. My very quick question to you is: you did say that readers may go down, but the authors are not going to. What is your opinion about the Kindle versus the regular feeling the book in your hand? Uh, every generation has a different kind of reading habit, and the new generation definitely reads very differently from us and from the older generation. So they're reading differently. But what is your take on the Kindle versus the book? And is it like a big snobbery thing that, I won't read on the Kindle? Or is
There
there
is
some,
there is an emotional answer to this, and there is a business answer to this.
can we
The
have both?
emotional the emotional answer is that there is nothing like the feel of a new book. You hold it, you just put it on your heart, and you read it lying down. You read it. I mean, I see the way my son reads books when I give him. That's exactly the way I used to read. and got my glasses very early. But there is a lot of joy in reading like that. Now, a lot of my friends say the business answer is that Kindle is in, especially after lockdown with the corona thing. You know that without technology, you cannot move an inch and you are obsolete. So a lot of my friends have moved on to Kindle, and they say, I haven't. They say that reading on Kindle is far easier. The user experience, that is a technical term of it. The user experience is far better because you can have a lot of features and you can do a lot of things. Again, back to emotional response to it. When it comes to reading a book, I don't want the features.
Okay, that was well answered, I have to say. Before we go into the question answers, I have a quick rapid fire for you. We'll try and do it as rapid as possible, but your favorite word?
My favorite word, Rasia.
Okay. If you were to have a catchphrase, what would it be?
Just run.
Just run, okay. Your pre-writing ritual, you've already told us it's 4:30 in the morning or 4 a.m., but what happens? What's your ritual in the morning?
I just get up, brush my teeth, put some water for boiling because I drink 4 glasses of warm water early in the morning. And with that tray in hand, I sit directly with the laptop.
Wow. And do you think about your book at night, what you're writing, or it just comes?
Yes,
There's
that
no
I do. That I do. What I do is, while I don't get time throughout the day to think about all these things, so when I'm sleeping, I often sleep with something I'm not happy about in the book that I'm writing. So, that is a very scientific approach which I have adopted, and consciously I have, that when you do that, you allow your subconscious to play over it. And by the time you get up, you may not have the perfect solution, but you do have a list of solutions. From those, when you kind of try to work them out, something comes out.
The one word you think is overused?
Saturday motivation, Tuesday motivation, Wednesday motivation. These are all Twitter terms. I hate it.
Monday morning blues. Okay. If your life was a book, what would the name be?
Let's start from scratch.
Wow. Okay. Now, I don't know whether you want to answer this or not. The one thing you left out in your book on Shah Rukh Khan?
I would have loved to include a chapter where I met him, sat with him, said everything that I did, the crazy things as a fan. I wrote the book at a time when I had already become a scholar. I would have loved to tell him that what I did as a fan, but given the texture of the book, that was my editor, whatever little I had put, my editor had slapped me out of it. So
thank you for that. The common belief that the movie remakes are never better than the book. Is there a movie remake you would have prefer better?
I'll tell you, I was once talking to Ira Dubey, Lilette Dubey's daughter, and she said that a movie remake can never be better than the book, because when you were reading the book, you were actually watching it, right, in your mind?
Yes,
you are watching the film. Yes. So you have already created the film in your mind. When someone else makes it, how can that be better than what you had made? A movie remake will never be better. But one film that I don't think, I mean, I cannot differentiate that which one is better, the reading or the viewing, is Bridges of Madison County.
Okay, last cup. The best book for you that you have read?
That I have read, there are so many.
One, just out of the, you've been influenced by. And my next question was, okay, you can answer that. Who is the author who's influenced you the most? So which is your favorite book? And
okay, let me answer this in a little different way.
Okay, yeah.
There are 3 kinds of authors, One is the Amitav Ghosh types.
Right.
People, whatever they write, people will read it. There is another author like Arundhati, how can I do this? Arundhati, what is her full name?
Ghosh.
Roy.
Roy.
Yes, Arundhati Roy.
Sorry, I saw Amitabh Ghosh and said
Yeah, so
Arundhati
the
Roy.
second
Yes.
category is Arundhati Roy.
Roy.
Influence people to read them. She will talk, people will hear. Whatever they say, people will hear, and she can influence people to read them. The third category is Ruskin Bond. People love them so much that they will read them. I would like to be a Ruskin Bond.
Wow. That's lovely. Thank you. Coral, that was really awesome, beautiful. We've really enjoyed it. You've been so truthful, and you really didn't need me. I think you had so much which just was flowing, but it's been a pleasure. I do have a couple of people who've asked the questions. Fatima Zafar, would you like to ask your question, or should I read it out?
Mallika, you can read it out.
Okay. At times you may feel like writer's block or don't know what to write next. Then what inspires you to write, or what do you do next?
You know, I don't believe that there is anything called writer's block. It is just a term given to glamorize the writing world. Because one day on the field, if Virat Kohli is out for duck, you don't call it a cricketer's block. It is just a bad day at work. So yes, there are lots of bad days at work. And just like after every bad day at work, you return with a vengeance, you work hard and you kind of get that phase over. The same happens with writers. There's nothing called writer's block. I don't believe there is one.
Lovely. Now I don't know who this person is, because I've got Mia2 as the name. I don't know.
Anonymous.
I will still read out the questions. You've been connected with Hindi cinema. Do you see women's portrayal more meaningful and engaging? That's number one. Number two, who would you give more credit to for your writings? Kolkata upbringing or Shantiniketan?
I have not been that involved with Hindi, with any kind of cinema. I have off and on had little stints, but I cannot call it that I have been well involved. Having said that, I do believe that cinema is progressing extremely well in terms of the way women are being portrayed. Because, you know, I when I was growing up, when I was in college, when the time when you actually understand the gender status quo, I believe that when I was in that phase, if a film like Thappad had released, my understanding of myself, my rights, and my power as an individual would have been far better shaped. I really believe that. And when I say I don't mean just I mean all the women who were growing up around that time. So yes, I do feel that cinema is progressing. There is also a lot of objectifying of women, but then I think I have spoken about that aspect when I spoke about the short skirt thing. Who would I give more credit to, Kolkata or Shantiniketan? I think I would give. It's very difficult to answer because, you know, Kolkata was the time when I had fallen in love with reading, and that aspect never left me. And a lot of your discipline is given to you by your parents, by your schools. So how can I ever say that my city falls behind? Having said that, Shantiniketan was one place which is so vast, and at least I haven't been there for a long time, but that was one place where when I was there, things were very open, very vast, and lots of nature. So that kind of a place has its influence, one. Second, it was a place where extremely talented brains were available in abundance. You know, you didn't have to look for them. You just step out of your house, and every house had one scholar, every house had one professor, somewhere or the other, doing something in art, something in literature, something in culture, something in science. And they had amazing, scholarly insights. So you can just enter anybody. And let me tell you that since I was doing economics, but I often went to Kala Bhavan and literature. And Kala Bhavan, I had befriended most of the professors, and I would enter their class and sit at the back, and they didn't say anything. But those were, that was a time which influenced my understanding of art and literature profusely, not because, not just because of the elements of the place, but also because the professors were very inviting. Whenever there was a question, they didn't ask which department you were from, whether you were from English. They just answered.
Wow. Sadia Kadir, is motherhood more powerful than poverty? A question I read in a book but could never get myself over it.
There is one story that my mother had told me, that there was an experiment done, and just take it, take this, whatever I'm telling you, just take it, don't take it personally. There was an experiment done where a monkey mother with her child was thrown in water. It swam as long as it could. It clutched on to its child. And when the water started rising and it couldn't breathe itself, it let go of the child to save itself. I don't know whether this kind of a discourse, I don't know who did this experiment and why. I don't know whether motherhood is more powerful than poverty, because there are also experiments and instances when a mother snatched food from a child. I mean, there's a Maxim Gorky literature on that. And I am not sure Maxim Gorky, I think it is. So literature and all other kinds of experiments, human experiments, psychological experiments, have tried to find these. But personally, very personally, I'll tell you, this is a question rather not asked.
Well, I do have to say that I ran out of a room where there were lots of, maybe left my kids there, ran out when a huge flying cockroach came in. I couldn't hold my kids, left them and ran out. So I'm absolutely, what should I say, guilty of, I don't know what, but I couldn't save my kids. I had to run. I'm petrified of cockroaches. Anyway, I do have Sakshi Soni who would like to ask a question. Sakshi, are you there? Last question, I think.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Sakshi.
Hello, ma'am.
You have a very interesting question, Sakshi. Do tell us. Do ask the question. Or maybe let's see whether she can unmute. Can we unmute Sakshi?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, quickly ask.
How do you select the name of your character?
Name of my characters. Okay. It takes, at times it doesn't take time, and at times it takes. Like when I was writing Rasia, Rajshekhar Subramanian was the name that was the first thing that came to my mind. You know, I mean, I knew that I'll write the story of Rajshekhar Subramanian, and there was no second thoughts about that. The name of the wife as Mansi, the name of the other girl as Vatsala came much later. But I knew that I didn't know what I'll write. I didn't know the story. When I write, it comes the way it is. So I just knew that I'll write the story of Rajshekhar Subramanian. And when I say Rajshekhar Subramanian, I knew what kind of a person he would be, how he'd look like, and stuff like that. But when I was writing Summer Holidays, I think initially I had named Anirudh. Anirudh was my brother. Okay. Then I changed the name to something else, Suraj or something. Then I said, hey, it's not happening. I mean, it's not just picking up the character. In between, you know, while writing the character, I just felt that it has to be someone who is really funny and flamboyant, and yet very a thinker and in his own way. So at some point of time, Rishi came to my mind and I changed it. So yes, Summer Holidays had given me a lot of pain in selecting the names of the characters, because I couldn't progress with the story when the names are just not gelling with the characters. But Rasya, I knew right from beginning.
Koral, we could go on and on. It's been absolutely fabulous. And it really, we could have heard so much more. I feel there's a lot. I'm sure I'm going to request them, Prabha Khaitan Foundation, when your next book is out, to bring you back in so we can just talk about the Panch Kanya and nothing else since we've done the rest. So thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
My pleasure too, Mallika. It was so nice interacting with you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Koral, and thank you, Mallika. This was indeed one of the most interesting Right Circle sessions that we have had for Patna and Ranchi group. And before we end the session, I would like to thank Prabha Khaitan Foundation, Shree Cement, our media partner, Dainik Jagran, Ehsaas Group for this very interesting session. Thank you.